If you're a rising junior or senior in high school, this is probably around the time of year where you start studying for the SAT, which is arguably going to be the most important test you take of your entire high school career because it's going to determine a lot of things. So you want to make sure you do well. And so I find that when studying, a really good way to learn is by watching someone else who knows what they're doing. So today I'm going to be walking through the math section of the SAT, specifically the calculator section. Now, when I took the SAT back in high school, I got a 1570, a 770 in reading and writing, and an 800 in math. So I would say I know a thing or two when it comes to the math section of the SAT. So today you guys can come along and watch me actually walk through the math section and answer all the questions so you guys can get a sense of my thought process and how I approach these questions. So let's get right into it. All right, so math test calculator, 55 minutes, 38 questions, which means we have a little bit more than a minute per question, but 55 minutes is a really long time, so hopefully we get things done a little bit quicker than that. So let's get right into things. All right, John runs at different speeds as part of his training program. The graph on which interval is the heart rate strictly decreasing, then strictly increasing. So this is increasing, then decreasing, and this is just increasing. So it's gonna be the 40 to 60, which is answer choice B. Number 2, if y equals kx, where k is a constant and y equals 24 when x equals 6, what is the value of y when x equals 5? So if y equals 24 and k is a constant and x equals 6, if we divide by 6 on both sides, we get 4 equals k. So x equals 5 and k equals 4. So kx is going to be 20, which is answer choice C. Next, number 3. In the figure above, lines L and M are parallel and lines S and T are parallel. If the measure of angle 1 is 35 degrees, what is the measure of angle 2? So we see that here you have angle 1, which is 35 degrees. And because it is along this line, that means this angle right here is 180 minus angle 1. So 180 minus 35, which is gonna be 145. So that means this angle here is 145 because it is complementary or supplementary, one of those, to angle 1. And we see that because S and T are parallel, and L and M are parallel, that means this angle here is the same as this angle here, which is the same as this angle here, which means angle 2 is going to be 145 degrees, which is answer choice D. If 16 plus 4x is 10 more than 14, what is the value of 8x? So 16 plus 4x is 10 more than 14, so 10 plus 14, which is 24, that means 16 plus 4x is 24. And if we subtract by 16 on both sides, we get 4x equals 8 and x equals 2. It's asking for 8x, so 8, substitute for the 2. It's going to give you 16, so the answer choice C is going to be the right one there. Number 5, which of the following graph best shows a strong negative association between D and T? So when it comes to association and scatter plots, the strength of the association is going to depend on how straight of a line it makes and the slope of that line. So if we want to have a negative association, that means we're going to want to have a graph where the line of best fit that you get from your points is a negative line. So if we take a look at our answer choices, we see this one has somewhat of a negative trend. This one is kind of flat, a little bit up. This one is also up, and this one is definitely down. So between A and D, both of them have a negative association. And I would say that because the points are closer together in answer choice D, that is going to have a stronger association because the points are more clustered together. So 5 is going to be answer choice D. All right, 6. Based on the information given in the box above, how many 1 milligram doses are there in one 2 decagram container? So a decagram is 10 grams and 1,000 milligrams is 1 gram. So if we have one 2 decagram container and 1 decagram is 10 grams, so we're going to have 20 grams. And if 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams, we're going to have 20,000 milligrams, which is going to be answer choice D. Number 7. The number of rooftops with solar panel installations in 5 cities is shown in the graph. If the total number of installations is 27,500, what is an appropriate label for the vertical axis of the graph? So if the total is 27,500, and that's what you would get if you add all of these up, we're trying to find a label for the vertical axis. So it's going to be whatever this is, and you'll want like all of this to add up to 27,500. So that means it's probably not going to be the tens or hundreds. That's also not going to be the tens of thousands. It's going to be thousands. As we see, we have 9, 5, 6, 4, and 3.5. And if you add those up, you get 27.5. And since the total number of installations is 27,500, that means you're gonna want your installations in thousands. So that's gonna be C. Number 8, for what value of n is n, the absolute value of n minus 1 plus 1 equal to 0? Basically what we want is an equation where you get this, which means you're gonna want an equation where you get this. But since this is the absolute value of anything is gonna be a positive number, that means this equality can't happen, which means there is no such value of n. So answer choice, D. All right, questions 9 and 10 refer to the following information. A equals 1052 plus 1.08 T. Which of the following expresses the air temperature in terms of the speed of a sound wave? Air temperature is T, speed of the sound wave is A. So we have A, 152 plus 1.08 T. And basically what we want is to get T by itself. So we can subtract by 152 on both sides, 1052, sorry. And then we can also divide by 1.08, and that'll give us T, and that's gonna be answer choice A, because that's the one that has the same equation. At which of the following air temperatures will the speed of a sound wave be closest to 1,000 feet per second? So that means we want A to be 1,000, and so what we can do is 1,000 equals 1052 plus 1.08 T, and then if we subtract by 1052, we'll get negative 52 equals 1.08 T, and then we can divide by 1.08, and then that'll give us the temperature. Don't have a calculator with me, which probably would have been good to have, but should be negative 48, I think. Should be answer choice B. All right, number 11. Which of the following numbers is not a solution of the inequality 3x minus 5 is greater than or equal to 4x minus 3? So basically, we can just rearrange the equation. We're gonna subtract by 3x on both sides and also add 3 on both sides. So we'll get negative 2 is greater than or equal to x. So that means the only one where this is not going to be true is A, because negative 1 is greater than negative 2. So it's going to be answer choice A for that one. Right, number 12. Based on the histogram above, of the following, which is the closest to the average number of seeds per apple? I'm not sure if there's a more proper way to do this, but we can just add everything up. For 3, we have 2 values, so 3 times 2 is 6. For 5, we have 4 values. 5 times 4 is 20. 6, we have 1 value. 6 times 1 equals 6. 7, we have 2 values. 7 times 2 is 14. And then 9, we have 3 values. 9 times 3 is 27. And then you can add them up, and you should get 73-ish. And then you can add the number of values up, 12. So we can find the average by doing 73 over 12, which is gonna be about 6. A little bit more than that, but that's close enough. It'll get us to our answer. Answer choice C. 13. Which of the following categories accounts for approximately 19% of all the survey respondents? Here's our total. This would be 310, and basically we want to find whichever value gives us 19%. So one way we can do that is take our 310 and multiply it by 19%, and that will give us our total number of students in a given category that we're looking for. So 310, 19% should be about 58, somewhere around there. And then we can just look inside the boxes to see which one gives us that value. And we see that 59 is here for male taking geometry. We're just gonna give it this answer choice, C. All right, 14. The table above lists the lengths to the nearest inch of a random sample of 21 fish. Outlier of 24 is an error. Which will change the most if the 24-inch measurement is removed from the data? It's definitely not going to be that they're all going to change by the same amount, just because that's highly improbable. Median is probably not going to change that much since they are resistant to outliers. So mean is going to change, and range is also probably going to change. I would say, given the number of values in this, we can see that there are 21 fish. So removing one data point is going to change the mean, but probably not as much as the range, since we see that currently we got a range of 16, but if we get rid of this, our range will be 8, which is a lot smaller, and our mean will change, but not as much. So it's probably going to be range that changes the most here. And that's essentially like a rule of thumb that you could take. Between the mean, median, and range, the range is probably going to be the most affected by an outlier, assuming the outlier is like either the minimum or the maximum. 15 and 16 are looking at the graph. What does the C-intercept in the graph represent? So C is the cost in dollars, and the C-intercept is going to be like the point where the line intersects here, which is right here, which we can see is going to be about $5 for 0 hours. Between the answer choices, it's going to be the initial cost of renting the boat. It's not going to be any of the other choices because the graph doesn't show anything about the number of boats rented or the total number of hours the boat is rented, because it's going to be at 0 hours and this could essentially go forever technically. And it's not going to be the increasing cost to rent the boat for each additional hour, because that's going to be the slope that you get between those. So 15 is going to be 8. All right, so moving on to 16, relationship between H and C. So we're going to be looking for an equation for the line. So we know that we're looking for the cost in dollars, and we know that the C-intercept is going to be 5 because that's the cost for renting it for 0 hours, which is 5. And then it's going to increase hourly, the total cost. And then so we want to see how much is increasing each hour. So between 0 and 1 hours, we go from $5 to $8, which is an increase of 3. And then from 1 hour to 2 hours, we go from $8 to $11, which is also an increase of 3. So we know that it's a linear relationship and that it's increasing by $3 for every hour. So we can write it as 3H. And then we look at the answer choices. The one that most closely matches this one is C. C equals 3H plus 5. 17, the complete graph of the function f is shown for what value of x is the value of fx at its minimum. So we're looking for where the minimum of the graph is, which is right here. I know it's looking for what that x value is. So we can just count the boxes basically. 1, 2, 3, and we went to the left. So it's going to be negative. So that's going to be answer choice B, -3. So if we plug it into the equation, this y equals f of x. If we do y equals f of -3, we're going to get that minimum value. 18, in the xy plane, 0, 0 is the solution. Which of the following relationships between A and B must be true? Okay, so we have y is less than -x plus A, and y is greater than x plus B. Okay, so in the xy plane, 0 is 0 is a solution, which means that if we plug in 0 for x and y, the system will be true. So if we can take this and plug in 0, we'll have 0 is less than 0 plus A, and we also have 0 is greater than 0 plus B, which is just to say that 0 is less than A and that 0 is greater than B. And so by the transitive property, we can tell that if we have our 0 here, our A is going to be greater than it and our B is going to be less than it. And so if we just get rid of this 0 in between, we can still see that this is still true, which is going to give us answer choice A. All right, 19, a food truck, $6.50 each and drinks for $2 each. The food truck's revenue from selling a total of 209 salads and drinks in one day was $836.50. How many salads were sold that day? Okay, so we can model this as a system of equations where we have 650x, where x is the number of salads, plus 2y, which is the number of drinks sold, is equal to 836.50 cents. And then we also have x plus y equals 209. And we're looking for the number of salads that were sold that day. So essentially what we can do is, well, we're looking for this x, whatever that is equal to, specifically in this equation. So a good way to do this is going to be via substitution. We can rearrange this equation so that we get y equals 209 minus x, and then we can plug that into this equation here. We'll still have 650x plus 209 minus x equals 836.50, and that'll give us 650x plus 418 minus 2x equals 836.50. And then we can combine like terms here, combine the x's. So 6.5x minus 2x is going to give us 4.5x, and 836.5 minus 418 is going to give us 418.5, and then we can divide by 450 on both sides, and that will give us 93 based on the answer choices available. I didn't have my calculator, so I couldn't do the math out, but I'm sure if you did the math out, you would find that it's 93. Essentially, how I did this is that I know that 450 times 100 would give us 450, which is greater than this value. So I know that it's not going to be 105, definitely not that. It also can't be 99, because if we have that 450 for 100, if we had 99, that's going to be 4.5 less, which is going to give us 445.5, I believe, which is still more than this 418.5. And the 77, I didn't do the math fully out, but if you did that, you would probably find that it's going to be less than. In any case, answer choice B is going to be the correct one there. All right, 20. Alma bought a computer at 20% discount. The total she paid was P dollars, which of the following represents the original price of the computer in terms of P. So P is the cost that she paid. The 20% off means that she paid 80% of the original price. And if there's a 1.08 sales tax, like an 8% sales tax, which is represented as 1.08. Basically, we can take the total cost and divide it by the discount that she got, and that would get us back to our original. We are also gonna end up dividing by the 1.08. And essentially, another way that we can rewrite this is 1.08 times 0.8x, and that would be x representing like the original cost. So as you can see, if you take your P and you divide it by these two values, you get your X. So it's going to be answer choice D. All right, 21. Group X is early bedtimes, group Y is later bedtimes. If a person is chosen at random from those who recalled at least one dream, what is the probability that the person belonged to group Y? Okay, so these are the number of dreams. At least one dream is going to be these two columns, which are these two values. So 11 plus 68 equals 79. And then that's out of the total who remembered at least one dream, which is going to be 39 plus 125, which is 164. And so for the probability, it's just going to be 79 over 164, which is C. 22 and 23 are going to look at this graph. All right, 22, best approximates for average rate of change in Kansas from 2008 to 2010 in terms of agriculture and natural resources. So that's here. The change from 2008 to 2010. So we have 448,000 and 358,000. And so the difference between those two is going to be 130. And then it's over 2 years. 130 is going to be divided by 2, which will give you 65, because it's 2008 and then 2009 and then 2010. So it's a 2-year change. And it's asking for like the average rate of change here. So it's going to be 65, or I guess like 65,000. And it's in thousands of dollars. So it's going to be another 3 zeros, which will give you answer choice B. Of the following, which program's ratio of its 2007 budget to its 2010 budget is closest to the human resources program ratio of its 2007 to 2010 budget? It's going to be 4 million to about 6 million. So its ratio is about 4 to 6, which is about 2 to 3. So we want to find something else that has about a 2 to 3 ratio from 2007 to 2010. So agriculture, that's like 3.7 to 4.8, which isn't quite 2/3. Education is going to be 2.1 to 3, which is about 2/3. So it could be this one. Let's see if there's something that's closer. Highways and transportation is like 1.5 to 1.8, which is not that close. And then public safety, that's 2.6 to 4.6, which also is not that close. B is going to be the closest one. All right, 24. Equation of a circle in the xy plane with center 0, 4 and radius endpoint 4, 3, 5. All right, so if our center is at 0, 4 instead of 0, 0, that means we moved up by 4, which means in our circle equation, we're going to have y minus 4, because y minus 4 is going to result in the center be moving up by 4. So that rules out B and D because they have plus 4 instead of minus 4. The plus 4 would mean that your center is at 0, negative 4. So there's that. And so the radius has an endpoint at 4, 3, 5. So essentially we can just do a distance formula. So we're going to have our distance. It's going to be the square root of the distance between these 2 points. It'll be the square root of 0 plus 4/3, which will give us 4/3. Or I guess you could do 4/3 minus 0, and that'll be squared. And then we'll also do 5 minus 4, which will give us 1 squared. And so when we do this all out, we'll get 16 over 9 plus 1. 1 can be written as 9 over 9. So it's going to be is 25 9. So that means r squared is 25 over 9. So that means it's going to be answer choice A. All right, 25 h equals negative 4.9 t squared plus 25 t. After approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? So basically we want to look for where h equals 0, whatever value of t we're going to get. So if we substitute it, we get negative 4.9 t squared plus 25 t. And to solve for values of t, we can factor out a t because we have t's in both terms. So we can do t times 4.9 t plus 25. So we'll see, we'll have t equals 0 because if this value is 0, this value is 0. We'll have the 25 and then we'll be dividing it by the 4.9. So that'll give us about 5, which will give us answer choice D. All right, 26. Type A produced 20% more pairs than type B. So A is equal to 20%, which is 1.2 of B. So if type A produced 144, how many is B? So we'll be dividing by 1.2 on both sides. Get B should be 120, which is answer choice B. All right, 27, 10 by 10. Each one is 1 meter, 5 centimeters. So we have a 10 by 10 square field. So 10 by 10, so we're gonna have 100 squares, and we've picked 10 squares randomly. And what we're trying to find is an approximation for the number of earthworms for the entire field. Just looking at the answer choices, it looks like the average here is going to be around 150 as your average. And since it's a 10 by 10 field where you have 100 squares and we randomly picked 10 squares where each square contains about 150 earthworms, we can really just do 150 times 100 and that'll give us 15,000, which is answer choice C. All right, if the system of inequalities y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1 and y is greater than 1 half x minus 1, if they're graphed, which quadrant contains no solutions? So we can kind of just sort of graph it. So we'll have y is greater than 2x plus 1. Kind of estimate 2x plus 1 to be like that. We also have 1 half x minus 1, which is about here, smaller slope like that. So we want to find which quadrant has no solutions. And so our solutions are where both of these are true. And since y is greater than both situations, we're really looking for above both lines, which is going to be this region here. And we see that it covers quadrants 1, 2, and 3, but not 4. So be answer choice C. All right, 29. For a polynomial px, the value of p3 is negative 2, which of the following must be true about px. I'm gonna be honest, I kind of forget how to do this, or rather I never really learned, but I'll walk you through my thought process. If p of 3 is negative 2, that means b and c cannot be true, because to be a factor of p of x means that you're gonna get 0 when you plug those in. So it can't be these two. And p of 3 doesn't really tell us anything about 5 as a factor, so I don't think it's that one either. Process of elimination says it's gotta be D. Hopefully that's correct. Which of the following is an equivalent form of the equation of the graph in the xy plane above, from which the coordinates of vertex A can be identified as a constant in the equation? Vertex A is at 1, so it's going to be D. And that's because we have this 1 here, this 16 here, 1, and 16. Okay, now it's free responses. Y can husk at least 12 dozen ears of corn per hour and at most 18 dozen. What is the possible amount of time in hours that it could take Y to husk 72 ears of corn? So it's between 12 corn per hour and 18 corn per hour. So it could be really any number in between those. We can just take the 72 and divide it by each of these. So 72 divided by 12 will give you 6. 72 divided by 18 is going to give you 4. So really any number between 4 and 6 is going to work. So just say like 5 or something, and that should be all good. Posted weight limit is 6,000 pounds. A delivery truck that is carrying X identical boxes, each weighing 14 pounds, will pass over the bridge. What is the maximum possible value for X that will keep the combined weight of the truck, driver, and boxes below the bridge's posted weight limit? So the weight limit is 6,000. The delivery truck and the driver is 4,500. The weight of the box is 14 pounds per number of boxes. So to find the number of boxes that you can carry, which is X, first we can subtract by 4,500 on both sides, which will give us 1,500 equals 14x. Divide by 14 on both sides, which will give us x is equal to, so the maximum should be 107. Should be the maximum, because if you go to 108, this value is going to be more than 100, which would make this more than 1,500, so it can't be that. 107 should be good. All right, according to the line graph above, the number of portable media players sold in 2008 is what fraction of the number sold in 2011? So in 2011, they sold 160 million, and then in 2008, they sold 100. So it's asking for 2008 as a fraction of 2011, so we can do 100 over 160, which is the same as 10 over 16, is the same as 5 over 8. 34, a local toaster 30-minute intervals sell for Tuesday and Wednesday, so it's 2 days, 24 hours per day, so we have 48 hours, and we're looking for the number of 30-minute intervals, which is half an hour. We're taking this 48 and we're dividing it by that 1/2, which is the same as 48 times 2, so it should be 96 slots. All right, 35. If the volume of the silo is 72 pi cubic yards, what is the diameter? So the height is 8, which means that 72 divided by 8, 9 pi is the area, and we know the area is pi r squared, and 9 is the 3 squared. So that means we know r is 3. It's asking for the diameter though, so we know that diameter is just 2 times the radius, so the diameter is going to be 6 yards. For what value of x is the function h above undefined? So we're looking for values where this expression is equal to 0. So we have x minus 5 squared plus 4x minus 5 plus 4 equals 0. I guess we could just FOIL everything out. So we'll get x squared minus 10x plus 25 plus 4x minus 20 plus 4 equals 0. X squared minus 6x, 9 equals 0. And then if we factor this, we'll get x minus 3 squared equals 0. So that tells us when x is equal to 3, we'll get this to be 0. So that means it's undefined for where x is equal to 3. 37 and 38. 2% interest. Initial deposit was $100. She uses the expression 100 times x to the t. So the value of x, so this is a exponential growth equation, and it tells us that the account earns 2% annually, which means an increase of 2%, which is the same as 1.02. Yeah, that's just the answer to the question, 1.02. 38, last one. Jessica's friend Tyshawn, 2.5% annually. Tyshawn made an initial deposit of 100 into this account. Same time, after 10 years, let's see, so Tyshawn is 100, 1.025 t, and then Jessica's is still the 1.02 t. After 10 years, so t equals 10, and we're just looking for the difference between these two. Okay, so if you do the math out, Tyshawn should be getting $128, and Jessica should be getting 121.9. So the difference between those two is about 6.11. Because if you subtract this from this, you get this, and you get these two from these equations. Yeah, that's it. This has been the math section of the SAT with the calculator, although I didn't have a calculator for most of it, so I was doing the math in my head. So hopefully it didn't turn out too badly, and hopefully you were able to learn a thing or two from watching me go through this exam and kind of learn from my thought process and how I approach each of the questions. Hopefully you'll be able to employ some of the strategies I used for your own test taking, whether that's when you're studying or taking the actual exam. And yeah, good luck on the SAT.